Welcome to Dead Wax.
Hey everybody, we got a super special episode today. We have Greg Wells, who is a record producer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, audio engineer. You've worked with basically everybody. I mean, I can say that because it's true. Lin-Manuel Miranda, Ariana Grande, Quincy Jones, Gracie Jones, Taylor Swift, John Legend, Timberland, Selena Gomez, Rufus Wainwright, One Republic, Katy Perry, so many people.
I realized I was supposed to say Gracie Abrams, I think.
I want to work with Gracie Jones, though.
Oh, okay, it was Gracie Abrams.
Whoever that is.
That's a Ryan error. Okay, continue, Jack. Sorry to interrupt.
Your first song recorded as a songwriter was Aerosmith on their double platinum 9 Leaves. Is that correct?
9 Lives.
Nine Lives, 9 Leaves. And then The Reason on Celine Dion's 31 million selling album, Let's Talk About Love. You worked on the best-selling worldwide album of 2018, The Greatest Showman, which was you produced and mixed. And you just finished doing some music for the new Wicked movie. Is that right?
I feel like I'm in trouble. Yes.
Where you also played almost all the instruments except for the orchestral stuff.
Weirdly, yes, which was not my idea, but that's what wound up happening.
So we, in our little talk before this episode, we were talking about songs that were influential to your sort of evolution as a musician. And one of the first things you mentioned was this song that we're about to listen to, which is Grace Jones' Slave to the Rhythm. So let's take a listen and we'll dive in and we'll talk about it.
Here we go.
God.
Holy shit. What an opus.
And that's a condensed version. That's an edited version.
Really?
Yeah, good, yeah.
Okay, so let me just give a little background here for the folks at home. Grace Jones is a Jamaican singer-songwriter, model, and actress. Born in Jamaica, she and her family moved to Syracuse, New York when she was a teenager. She was a high-profile figure of New York City's Studio 54-centered disco scene, often called Queen of the Gay Discos. Jones was ranked 82nd on VH1's 100 Greatest Women of Rock and Roll. Her career inspired many other talents, including Lady Gaga, Rihanna, and Solange. The song Slave to the Rhythm was released in October of 1985 on Jones's 7th album of the same name. The album was originally intended for the band Frankie Goes to Hollywood, but was eventually given to Jones. The song and album were produced by Trevor Horn, who's often referred to as the man who invented the 80s, producing such bands as The Buggles, Yes, and Seal. Pretty good. Okay, so you heard the song when you were how old?
15 or 16.
And what struck you? What attracted you to it?
Well, I mean, what didn't, it's like, I mean, here we are in 2024. I'm sitting in the room with, people that have pretty much heard and been blown away by everything that there is to hear and be blown away by. And we're all blown away by what we just heard, which was done so long ago in England with very primitive technology. And it's still, I mean, my stomach's all just like, and I've heard that thousands of times at this point. I mean, the first time I heard that, I still react the same way. Well, certainly when it came out, I hear, this is a big parallel to draw, but I hear guitarists talk about how, before Jimi Hendrix, like no one played guitar like that. And then he did his thing, and no one was producing, and there was no record that sounded like that. There was no arrangement that sounded like that. There was no songwriting that sounded like that. Those clustery chords. It's like everything that turns on my indulgent inner muso, which is not so inner, it's pretty outer. And I'm a drummer first, and that drum feel, that's kind of like real funky, shuffly thing, is my favorite thing to play.
Yeah.
And that is played, I can't remember the guy's name.
William Juju House?
Yes, Juju. Yes. Thank you.
You know what's amazing is like what. So I've not heard this before. This is my first time hearing this track, literally just now. And what you just said is kind of how I feel like about a lot of early Beatles records, you can hear like whole branches of music history that come out of like one or two Beatles songs.
Sure.
I can hear branches, like I can hear Sting coming out of, like the Police coming out of this whole arrangement. Like a lot of those like synth clusters, guitar playing, a lot of the harmonic changes. You
Yeah.
can hear Sting and the Police, and like, yeah, I feel like this is like from a like taxonomic music evolutionary standpoint, you can hear branches of music
Yeah.
history coming out of this track.
Yeah.
You know?
And for being as influential, it's not super known, right? Like,
Oh yeah, it was not a big hit song at all.
yeah. So to me, it resonates the same way. And I think the reason why I love songs like this is because they work on so many levels. You cannot know anything. You cannot pay attention to the sounds or to the harmony or to the performances, and it just feels good. You can appreciate it because the drums feel so good. The bass playing is so good. Sonically, it tickles all of your senses in terms of the way that it's recorded. But then you start digging deeper and deeper and listening and looking around, and you start to appreciate all these other deep aspects. Like, to me, the first thing that struck me is the harmony. There's this sort of, is it a major 6 chord? Let's just figure this out real quick. So the first, play the top of the song, Smackdown.
Okay.
You mean the top?
Yeah.
Like the
Okay.
very first,
Yeah.
the very first thing you hear. This. It's all kind of Bill Evans-y, Eric Whitacre-y, kind
Yeah.
of like just,
Let's listen to those two again. Here we go.
A flat sus
So it's
with
this-
a 9.
Okay, so we have, and then, kind of, is that
At
kind of the vibe?
at its root, yeah.
Okay. So your second chord, you're sort of hitting people over the head with something that's strange and unfamiliar and conflicted.
Because I'm so old,
Yeah.
right? Like I remember nothing sounded like that. Like those are samples of who knows what.
Yeah.
I now know everything about this track.
So what instrument
It's
is
a
that?
Fairlight.
Okay.
It's Fairlights all over this, and I believe mono sample. I think everything is in mono,
Which
including
Fairlight's-
the drum track.
Fairlight is like the first sampler.
Yeah, it's like pre-synclavier. It was a big deal in England
Uh-huh.
at the time, and they were unbelievably expensive.
Yeah.
But just the sonic landscape alone is
Yeah.
like, so what are those sounds? It's like
Yes.
it's voices, it's synth pads, it's strings, and then those crazy clustery chords. I love it when people don't underestimate the listening audience.
Yes.
Yes.
And I tried also in my own feeble way to not do that, you know. I mean, I hear my entire career coming out of that track.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I've never been able to pull off anything like that, but
When you say underestimate the listening audience, what do you mean by that?
take a meeting with most record companies,
Yeah.
right? Because it's unfortunately such a fearful environment to work in because it's so hard to make money in music, and I have empathy for what they're going through. But like that's what I love about Stanley Kubrick's movies, that he would, and Christopher Nolan does this too.
Yes.
He wants the ending to be inexplicable.
Right.
He doesn't need a big pink ribbon wrapped around the ending of the movies.
Yeah.
So I love mystery. I love being sucked into the vacuum of mystery. I like stuff that I don't understand. If I understand it, it's like a snooze cruise for me. I just have no interest. If I don't get it, if I feel like I can't do it, I'm just like
So
moth to the flame.
there's one of the directors at Pixar. I don't know if it was Brad Bird or somebody else talked about spoon feeding the audience and how the worst thing you can do as a filmmaker is spoon feed your audience the answers. Because what makes a movie interesting and engaging to watch is when you're trying to figure something out. And if the filmmaker figures it out for you and tells you, then your brain isn't working anymore. You've stopped working for it. And really great artists, I found, like they kind of make you work for the meaning. You know, you can't just sit back and let it happen to you. You have to kind of use your heart and your brain and your body to understand what you're enjoying. You know, those are my favorite artists, whether they're filmmakers or musicians or songwriters. They kind of make you work for it a bit.
But they also, I feel like they invite you in to their process. Mm-hmm. It's like, come on this explorative journey with me. You know, even Joni Mitchell, which is like she's sharing her diary with us. It's all first person. It's not like Dylan writes in third person. Joni's writing in first person. It's very, very, very personal. She's not making a story up. Like, this really is real for her. But I don't feel, oh, I shouldn't be listening to this.
Yeah.
I feel like she's sharing it, you know.
Yeah.
But it is like, well, what is it? What do you, I don't know.
The other thing about not spoon-feeding your audience is, to me, there's no doubt that in making this track, they're playing to what they want to hear. Like, they're getting themselves off, right? They're not doing something for the sake of, well, I think this will be popular even though this is maybe like not what I like or not what I want to hear. Like, this feels so good and the harmony is so interesting and the performances are so genuine that I think that all adds up together into making something believable and genuine.
Can you said you're a drummer first. Can you just walk us through these drums and what you notice about them? Let's just listen to these drums when they come in, and I just want to hear what you notice about the drums.
Okay, stop. I mean, it's just everything I want to do as a drummer, you know, and everything I've tried to do as a drummer ever since I was a kid. The feel, the sound of that snare drum for this kind of song, you know, wouldn't be right for lots of other kinds of songs, but for this, it's like perfect. The way that fantastic drummer is hitting the drum. There's so many ways to hit a drum. It's such a responsive instrument. You know, you can just immediately tell you're listening to like a masterful musician giving you their best. And for whatever reason, that's my favorite groove to play as a drummer. It still is. And it's done at such a level of excellence that I just find it so collar grabbing. I'm really like yanked towards it, just like, I want to do that, you know.
It's cool. Like, it sounds very. This groove is so defining of this era, but at the same time, there's elements to his playing that harken back to big bands and like his fills and ghost notes. Like, it's pretty jazz. Like, you can tell this is a learned deep motherfucker who's calling back to the lineage of the instrument.
Totally. Absolutely, yeah. As you can, I think, with any great musician, you know, if you're like really listening. But he's so exposed in this. It's such a drum-heavy mix, which again, from my skewed perspective of drumming in bands, I get accused of mixing my drums too hot. Yeah. But I think it's just because that's how you want to hear. Had my head over the snare drum for all those years in bands. It's like, oh, this is normal,
right?
But so I like that. There's so many things I could tell you about this track. I need to share it because I find it really inspiring as a record maker.
Yeah.
The original version of this song sounded nothing like this.
Okay.
It was 4/4 straight time, like very Germanic, like Sprockets, Mike Myers, you know. And it was full. And there is a version of that. There's a finished version of that out there. And Grace was signed to, I can't remember the label. And they were still working on it, and the label deal ran out of money. I'm probably getting these details wrong, so people, if you're watching who actually know all the details, forgive me.
We'll find out in the comments.
I'm paraphrasing, but I'm trying to make a point that the team involved here, which was not just Trevor Horn, it was also Stephen Lipson, who's a fantastic English record producer who won Best Producer of the Year at the Grammys for Annie Lennox's insanely amazing first solo record, which is called what? I can't remember what it's called. Unbelievable solo record. And Stephen used to hire me to be the band for some of his records.
Cool.
So I'd fly over to London and I'd play all the instruments, and it was like a master class in record production working for him. And I think his credit on this is co-produced by Stephen Lipson. And Stephen is, I don't know Trevor Horn at all, but I know Stephen, and this is how I know all this stuff. So, and he knows I'm a disciple of this song. So they ran through one record deal. The song wasn't finished. Then Chris Blackwell and Island signed Grace. They're still working on the song. They're working away on this like version of it. And Chris is like, you know what? I think they should have like a reggae kind of feel to it. And they're like, what? yeah, I think you should try. So that's how this one came. And they were probably already like over a year into working on it.
Wow.
Because Trevor Horn's he's not fast in a good way. He's like really takes his time and really examines. It's like a sculptor, you know. There's no rush. It's done when it's done. The cake is baked when it's baked. And then they launched into this whole version of it, which for me is like one of the best things I've ever heard in my life. And it just came from one suggestion. And then I believe that record deal ran out of money. And I think they got a third record deal. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe Island was the third record deal. I forget. There were at least 2 record deals to pay for this song. And they spent the whole budget on this one song.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. It's
Yeah.
just like total. What I love about that story, even though I'm probably getting some facts wrong, but the gist of it is correct. They just went for it until they knew it was right. And
Right.
it could have been right in 3 days.
I love in that era too of God knows how much money they spent on this song through all of those deals.
Yes, it was a different time.
The other thing I hear in this production is they got a new toy. I remember like when I got this Mellotron, I of course had used like soft synth like Mellotrons before, but I was working with Tony Berg and he has a Mellotron next in the room or the control room. He's like, oh, you got to get a Mellotron. I was like, well, I you know, like the samples they're out there. He's like, no, you got to get this thing. I'm telling you, it's different. And I got one, and the next thing we were producing something together, and I brought it back in, and there was just like 40 Mellotron tracks, and it was terrible. But I feel like there's maybe a hint of that in all of these different sounds. There's so many freaking sounds in this thing.
Yeah.
And it kind of sounds like, oh, they're playing with a new toy.
They're having fun.
Yeah.
They're having fun. But everything has its own space.
Yes.
Like, it's really nice listening to this in headphones. I haven't done that very much.
Mm-hmm.
The arrangement is really great, but also, like, the mixing arrangement's really
Yes.
so
Yes.
the specificity of where things have been panned, and I'm feeling like there's height happening as well. And, oh, it's just a genius
Totally.
little
Like
record.
the flutes.
Yes. You know what? You know what's so interesting about that? We've talked about this before on the show, but even looking at the waveform, this is the days before mixes were squashed,
Before
and
the
there was
volume
like
wars.
a ton of headroom on the whole thing. And so what that does is it creates this sense of like breadth and openness, and you can bring other instruments in and take them out. And it feels much more alive and open and spacious than the sort of crunched square wave mixes. I like a good crunched square wave mix. I
Yeah.
mean, those are great too. But after listening to a lot of those for decades, you hear a mix like this, and it almost feels like, it just feels like you get the full the full wave of music.
Boudin would talk about mixing like that. And Al Schmidt was the same way, that both those guys would not really use compression in their mixes. I mean, if Al, who I got to know quite well, I don't know Bruce at all. I've just read a lot, and I know Quincy Jones a bit, and we've talked about this. But those guys are like, they want to create a space you can walk into, which is what you were just describing.
Yes.
It's like, this is like a forest you can like
Yes.
enter
Yeah.
instead of like, this is a, you know, I like a good slam mix too, and I'm certainly guilty of making lots of them. But if Al Schmidt recorded a track, and this goes back to like things from the 50s, but certainly like, you know, Rosanna by Toto, Africa, those are tracks he recorded and mixed.
Yep.
No EQ, no compression. It's only microphone selection and microphone position, and that's it. And then when he mixes it, no EQ, no compression.
Wow.
That's his thing. And pretty much the faders at Unity, because he would record.
At the
He
right
wanted
level.
it to sound like a mix, and he might zhuzh it a little bit. Near the end of his career, he was putting a tiny little bit of the TubeTech multiband compressor across the mix, just tickling it, just
Yeah.
a tiny little bit, which is only like 3 little things. That's it. So Bruce Sweeting, too, all those like iconic Michael Jackson mixes, you know, Off the Wall's an
Yeah.
amazing sounding record. Thriller's an amazing sounding record. There's no compression.
I hear Thriller in this.
Me too.
I hear Off the Wall in this.
Yeah.
You can hear. That's what I mean by like
It has
the
that thing.
taxonomy of music lineage. Like
Totally.
you hear those records in this record.
Can you play If I ever lose my faith in
That's what I was gonna say. The chords.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what I meant by sting.
Let's do a quick back-to-back here. I'm just curious.
Yes, you could say all of this and worse, but if I ever lose my faith in you.
Now go back and play the Grace Jones song. It sounds like we're in a similar forest, which is a great way to describe the sonic space.
And then
I'm just playing around.
But listen to how much more hot the drums are. The drums are so much louder in this. Another thing that I think lends to how much space it feels like there is in the track is that the bass feels contained and there's not a ton of sub in it, right? It feels like, which allows things to breathe. Can we listen to that again and pay attention to the bass? And so, Greg, talk a bit about how the bass and the drums are interacting sonically and like why this works so well and feels so good.
Because it's one of the best records ever made.
Great. Okay, so the next song,
something that I like. That might be Trevor Horn playing bass. I can't remember. And Trevor's a really good bass player.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if he's playing bass on this or not. But I at some point the penny dropped for me that making a recording is similar to filming. Like, this is a live filming, but if we were making a movie, we would do many takes of this, right? And we would edit together the best moments, and there'd be a movie director, and it's like sculpture, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like composition. Oscar Peterson said, composition is the same as improvisation, just slowed down. But I would take it one step further, where you can with the composition, you get to choose your favorite ideas.
Yeah.
And you can discard the ones that you don't think, the ones that aren't winning, that not standing at the finish line. So when I listen to Slave to the Rhythm, I'm hearing, especially now, being 1,000 years old, I'm listening to, every nanosecond of what's in that track has been, it's there for a reason. It was all very methodically chosen, and with people with amazing taste. Trevor Horn, Stephen Lipson, they have the best taste in this kind of record making. And it's all it's super intentional.
Yes.
I think you said intentionality earlier. It's like it just screams of intentionality.
yes.
And I take that to be very inspiring. And I used to approach record making and sometimes you do. I just recorded a thing with Michael Bublé that you're going to hear soon. It's a new Christmas song, and we cut it live off the floor, no headphones, no click. Me, Michael, and Carly Pierce, this fantastic country singer. There's a time and place for that, but most of the time, it is more like filmmaking for me, or like sculpture.
Yeah.
It's like, take your time, just get it, because you got to live with this shit forever,
Yeah.
and forever is a long time, and it's hard to get it right. I think that's why Trevor Horn is okay with taking as long as it takes.
And so even in these days, these pre-Pro Tools days,
Right.
you think this drum and bass take were heavily edited?
I know that they were.
They were, okay.
Yeah. Apparently, most of that drum take is a 4-bar loop
Whoa.
that's been moved around, and yeah, like a ridiculous performance. And I'm sure that drummer could play from top to bottom. And
Yeah.
we'd be like, that's amazing. But
And then they flew fills around to all the different
something
sections?
like that. Yeah. Stephen Lipson walked me through.
Because every fill, as you were listening, you were playing along
Yes.
with...
Yeah,
with
there's different fills. It's not the same. It's not
Right.
There's definitely, they took different bits, but I think
But each of the fills feels intentional and compositional.
Absolutely.
To your point, is like there are different fills in different places of the song to go somewhere.
Yeah.
They're there for a reason.
let's listen to Katy Perry, "Waking Up in Vegas,"
Great.
which is a track that you produced. It's on her.
one of the first things I did with Katy a
It's
long
on
time
her
ago.
her 2008 record.
Debut album.
Mm-hmm.
Jack, tell us about this song before we listen.
So this is Katy Perry, one of the best-selling artists in the world. Sold over 143 million records, which is kind of insane. That's insane. This song was co-produced by you, Greg, and Mo Faisal, right?
Just me.
Just you? Oh, so we got that wrong. Okay, so this song is just produced by Greg. You played all the instruments in this track, is that right?
Who's Mo?
Who's Mo?
Sorry, Mo.
We have to have a talk with our research team once the episode is through. Well, yeah, someone will be severely disciplined for that mistake.
Gracie Jones played drums on this one, though.
Nice. A fade out.
Yeah.
Fade out.
One of the few fade outs of my career.
Man, I miss when music sounded like that.
Wow, that's crazy. I haven't heard that in headphones maybe ever.
Man, that song, it's so hard not to just sit back and enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? Like
It's a great song.
It's almost hard. Like it's so well done that it's just like it's hard to actually like think about it and pick it apart because you just want to like bask in it.
Yep.
It's just like such like the roof is down and your hands are up and it's playing and you're driving to Vegas and you have no idea how much money you're about to lose. It's so much fun.
Greg, you played everything on that?
Yeah. Well, here's why. And by the way, I'm quite happy to play nothing on the stuff I produce. When I was younger, I think I wanted to because it was
Has something to prove?
well, I from the sticks in Canada, and it was just like, really, I get to do this. And,
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you know, but it's more fun for me now being the coach. I don't
Yeah.
need to like be out there scoring
Right.
3-pointers. You know,
Yeah.
but I like encouraging people to do that. But so Katy had made a full album with the really wonderful and crazy talented Glenn Ballard. And was signed to Columbia, and they wanted to add a couple songs to it, and I got called by her A&R guy, who's Tim Devine, who's no longer in the business, but he was a fantastic A&R guy, and they introduced us, Marshall Altman and Tim Devine, said I should meet Katy Perry and vice versa, so we did, and they said, we have this song. She did a version of it with Glenn, and we love the Glenn record, but we think that maybe this one song, maybe you could like, I don't know, just spice it up a little bit or do something with it. And so here's where I'm going with this. We had zero expectation of anything, so it was just me and Katy sitting in a room like this,
Yeah.
and we had this amazing song. The script was so good. Like
Yeah.
the song is so good. You
I
know,
love that
Des-
you call it the script. It's
It
like,
is. It's
that's
like-
the filmmaking thing for you.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, but I guess Steven Spielberg says something like, "If it's not on the page, it's not on the stage." You know, if I don't have it, I can't make a okay song sound amazing.
Yeah.
I can't. I just can't.
Yeah.
So it was just the two of us, and I was producing her, and she kind of wound up producing me. Like some of those cool guitar parts would be things that I would probably discard. She was like, actually, no, can you do more? And then she started singing, like in the pre-chorus,
Yeah.
there's a really cool octave guitar.
Yeah.
That was her singing. She's
Cool.
like, can you try this? And I play it. She's like, yep, and add a note and do this. And she was coaching me to do more drum fills. And
Did you start with the drums?
I don't remember. It was so long ago. It was like 2005, 2006.
Can we go back and listen to that guitar part in the pre-chorus?
It's a
actually?
really cool pre-chorus. That's it.
Yeah, go back a little bit. Back further.
This.
Okay.
And that's a drum machine, right? That's a
That's
a
me
loop.
programming from a keyboard.
Okay.
Part of
And then real drums come in the
Yeah.
chorus.
Part of the genius of this song is that rhythmic motif, the da 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 da
That's right.
da 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 da. And I think that might be the first time that kind of foreshadows what we're about to hear
I've never thought of that, and you're so right.
in the chorus. Now play the chorus and listen to
Wow.
Yeah, da 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 da, which first we get introduced to that rhythmic motif in the pre-chorus.
And then-
Interesting.
Now, don't blame me. You wanna cash out.
That's so interesting. Good call out.
It's that underlying shit that makes this type of song work so well. There's an internal logic to it.
Yeah.
So I gotta two things I want to get into. First is there's no double tracking on her voice in those verses. It's just her raw, nuanced, beautiful
21-year-old
emotional, squeaky, like listen to this vocal performance.
All a blur last night. We need a taxi, 'cause you're hungover and I'm blown.
You can hear her whole career in that verse.
It's one of the best vocals I think I've ever been a part of recording.
And I don't think she gets enough credit for how good of a singer.
She's an insane singer.
Yeah.
Did she
had
just
some, I think in-ear monitors have ruined live singing. So she's had a lot of moments where there's been things on TV. Sorry, Katy. You know how I feel about in-ear monitors. So, where it's like it compromises the vocal performance. But you put her, if she sat on this couch right now and just sang, playing guitar, we'd all just fall over.
Yeah.
And a lot of singers have been hurt by headphones or by in-ear monitors, and they want to hear their voice super loud. And it winds up making you feel a little further away from the harmonic reference of like, what, am I in tune right now? I don't know because I'm so loud. But that's what she sounds like.
When you record a singer, are you listening to what they're hearing, the same mix?
Sometimes, yeah.
And will you suggest that they listen to their vocal quieter if you think it's okay?
Oh yeah, and an ear off.
You
Always
suggest
like that.
you suggest an ear off.
Definitely.
Okay.
Why? Because it makes you because you're used to singing that way, and so it feels more natural to you, and so you get more of like an authentic sound from the singer.
I've learned the hard way that microphones are so weird. It's such an unnatural thing. Speakers are so weird. Headphones are so weird. But we are trying to recreate a feeling of like being moved by an organic performance, and there's something about this. Like this is what I sound like to me. And I'm hearing myself through my bones. I'm hearing myself through my ears to some degree, but not only through my ears. I hear myself in the air. I hear the reverberation of the wall. I put this on, and it's a whole other thing. So it screws with my how to use this. If I'm aiming a bow and arrow, it's like it's not the same thing. So I've learned that when a singer does this, they're hearing themselves in the room. They're hearing themselves partially through their skull and whatever else is going on. But all of a sudden, through the crazy, weird, unnatural microphone, me sitting in the other room, listening on speakers, all of a sudden, not just the tuning gets better, but the feeling gets so much better. I mean, it goes from like feeling like self-conscious and sort of slightly hesitant to all of a sudden like, oh, there's the artist.
Which is hard because when you play live, just taking these off actually feels so much better to me in the room.
Oh my God.
Right now.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But when you play live and you wear in-ears, the first thing that a sound engineer will tell you is like, don't take them out. You need the seal, right? They work best if you have them both in and they're sealed so that you can hear as little of the outside noise as possible. And then, I mean, what some singers do, Bublé included, is take one out or take a little bit out because of what you're talking about. It just feels better. They can hear the room. They can hear the monitors. But it is, so, I mean, it's not great for your hearing, right? To have like one thing being like blasted and then another ear not.
None of it's great for your hearing. I guess,
Right. But that whole battle that you're describing is an interesting one that is different on stage and in the studio.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can't really forensically prove this, but I feel like I can. I mean, I feel like it's the reason that all of those much older records, from like the Phil Spector stuff to the Owen Bradley, Patsy Cline records to like anything from that era, they didn't have headphones on. They were all in the same room.
Yeah.
And those are impeccable performances, and they sound incredible. And people often say, "How come no one sounds as good as that?" Well, I'll tell you what, take these off.
Yeah.
You know.
So when we record, we don't record with headphones. When we do pockets recordings, we just
Nice.
go no headphones, everybody in the same room. But I was gonna say, like, when I'm on stage, I would rather. So I like to use wedges, and I crank them, and then I put in earplugs. And the reason is because I don't need to hear clean anything. I want to feel the sound vibrating my skin and my chest. I want to feel the kick more than I want to hear the kick. Like, I want to get the experience of live music in my body. And you're right that, like, a lot of your hearing is actually transduction through your skull.
Oh, yeah.
And through your head and your skeleton. And the experience of music to me through transduction is more important than the detail of the way it sounds in my ears. So I never use in-ears or headphones when I'm playing live. I would much prefer to feel the sound waves on my body.
That's such a great point. And to think about listening to music as your skeleton vibrating.
Yeah.
Is also what an amazing image. Like, I've never thought about it in that way.
So a friend of mine, storied record company, A&R, and then chairman of many record companies, Jason Flom. He's been around for a long time. Amazing guy. He started this, I guess he's called a charity called the Church of Rock and Roll. And it's not a church. You know, he's a atheist Jew, but he's just like, let's just have a situation where, like, everyone loves each other and you can love whoever you want, however you want, and that's it. That's the Church of Rock and Roll. So he does these little events sometimes where he did a thing in Vegas a couple years ago. I guess it would have been pre-COVID, so several years ago. And he had a band playing. What's the name of that band? It sounds a lot like Led Zeppelin, the younger band. He signed them. We all know who I mean. I'm blanking right now on their name. They're a great band. Anyway, whatever. He had a rock band playing.
What was that?
Greta Van Fleet.
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
Nice.
Greta Van Fleet. And they were playing, and he partnered up with some tech company that made these vests.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they pulled it off, but anyway, they had like about 20 to 30 people who were completely deaf wearing these vests for the first time. And they claimed that they're fully hearing the music, and they got up and they were dancing to it, and it's all on camera. There's a website somewhere for Church of Rock and Roll, and I think there's clips of this happening. Just to your point, I mean, it was really like the ears are absolutely part of it, but there's other equally powerful ways too.
Yeah, I'm going to mess up the science here, so please tell me that I'm full of shit in the comments. But there's like, you can actually bypass certain mechanisms in your inner ear, like your cochlea or the cilia, right? That actually like wave because of like air pressure. Like, that only contributes to a portion of your hearing, and the rest of it is actually coming from literally your skeleton.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And coming through your bones, and you don't need your cilia to hear that portion of the sound. So you can get it from vibrating. There are companies that make pads that you can sit on for subwoofers.
Yeah.
So that like when you feel the subwoofer in addition to like, hearing it.
It's good for drumming.
Yeah.
Like if you want to feel the kick drum.
Yeah.
You know, if you ever wear those little foam earplugs, which
Yeah.
I have 6 kids, so I always have a jar of foam earplugs nearby, and I highly recommend it, by the way. But sometimes I'll leave them in when I don't need them, and I'm just walking around the house.
Yeah.
And every time I take a step, now I have like we're down 30 dB in my ear, so basically they're not off, but they're like way down. It's so loud, the clunking of my bones,
Yeah.
just taking a step.
Right.
It's so loud.
Yeah.
But that's happening every time I take a step without the earplugs in, and I don't notice. I never hear,
Right.
oh, it's loud when I walk, but it's, anyway.
At the Sphere, have you guys been to the Sphere? Speaking of Vegas,
Not yet, no.
they have the pads in all of the seats.
Fun.
And it's the best. I mean, not to turn this into a Sphere advertisement, but it's the best sonic experience I've ever encountered in a live setting. It's like completely revolutionary.
What a sensory
Go-
overload.
it doesn't matter who's playing. Go just to
Right.
experience the venue. It's crazy.
Crazy.
what's some music that you've been listening to recently? Song, artist, genre, something that you've been listening to recently that's inspiring, that you've really dug?
Wicked. So, when I'm working on stuff, I can only listen to what I'm working on. I don't have any listening time anymore.
Can you talk a little bit?
Weird.
I know.
Wow.
How much time do we have right now? We're good. Just because, I mean, you're such a Renaissance man, and you've produced so many amazing records, but you also have been a part of so many amazing film scores and movies and whatnot. What can you talk a little bit about? Your likes and dislikes of each process, and just the difference between writing for movies and producing records.
Sure. Well, the movie experience is still sort of new for me. I've been trying to produce records since, 25, 30 years. But in 2016, something like that, a first-time movie director who was a video director named Michael Gracie knocked on the door, and he was making this movie Greatest Showman. And he liked some of the records that I produced, and he said, I think you should come and produce the music for this movie. So I didn't write anything for it.
Okay.
The songs were written, great songs written by Pasek and Paul, these two fantastic young writers out of New York, who are mostly Broadway writers. They wrote Dear Evan Hansen, which is a pretty amazing musical. And so that's how Michael Gracie sort of drew like in the old Bugs Bunny cartoons where he would draw a manhole and jump. Like Michael kind of drew a door in the wall that just wasn't there for me before, like that door right there. It's just was a solid brick wall before, and I had no interest in working on movies actually until that point. That's just not what you're asking, but I just was worried about losing control, and that's what I like about being a record producer. It's like being the movie director. You're in charge. It's the audience, you and the artist, but really you kind of like you have a lot of control over the cake that leaves the cake shop. But that went well, and Michael gave me a lot of support, and I got to, with the help of Pasek and Paul and Michael, we got the music exactly where I wanted it to be. So I said yes to the next thing that kind of came in front of me, and then the next thing I wound up making 3 films with Lin-Manuel Miranda and Alex Lacamoire and Bill Sherman and that whole team that surrounds Lin, which was mind-blowing. And again, that was a safe space because Lin is also, he's a musician. I mean, he's one of us. He's not like I've learned in movies, music is a language that not a lot of people speak.
Yeah.
And movies are so visual. It's so camera, and whoever's on camera or whoever's helping put people on camera, they are at the top of the food chain, and people like us enter through the kitchen. It's just the way it is. I sort of understand it, but it's frustrating. But it wasn't like that on Showman or the 3 films I did with Lin's camp.
Which sounds like was largely due to your relationship with these people.
Well, it's totally. It's
good people that you got along with and saw eye to eye with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we all do for a living. If you don't have trust in the room, you can't. It's a Canadian reference, but you can't. The canoe's not going to leave the dock.
Right.
You can't go anywhere if you don't trust each other to some degree.
Yeah.
And the more trust there is, picking a good team is important. I think Lin is very good at picking a great team, and I think the people on his team are good at expanding that team.
Yeah.
It's very New York. It's like there's no bullshit.
Yeah.
If you can't carry your own weight, if you're not bringing something to it, there's just no way you're going to be in the room in the first place. And it was an amazing experience being led in by people who frankly don't need my help. They really don't. And Lin's a genius. But so that led to me spending the last 2 years and some additional months working on this movie. It's 2 movies, Wicked Part 1 and then Wicked Part 2, which we're about to jump into. But Wicked Part 1 is done, and I started that in the summer of 2022. And it is, I've never worked on anything like it before. In every other movie experience I've had, and most movie people, with the exception of Pixar studios, Pixar does what happened to me on this thing. They bring the musicians in at the very, very, very beginning. You're on it from day one. Most movie studios don't. They bring people like us in after the film's basically made.
Yeah.
And then we come and music's treated as a sweetener.
Right.
Again, enter through the kitchen. You know, it's like, you're whatever. It's like it's a post thing. Although, of course, movies
Fix this.
Music is so important in movies. But on this one, I was brought in. I was hired before most of the cast was hired. In fact, just the two leads, Ariana and Cynthia, were hired, and then I got hired soon after that. We didn't know who the wizard was. We didn't know Michelle Yeoh was coming on. Jonathan Bailey had no idea. And if I'm going on too long, please cut me off. But it's just been
amazing.
Continue.
heavy lifting. Tons of music.
Describe your role in this movie.
I am the music producer for all the songs.
Okay.
So there's, I didn't write the score. I'm not writing the score in any of these movies. I'm always brought in as like, kind of like my role as a record producer.
Right.
But they don't call it record producer in film because there's no record. So I'm the music producer, and I'm also mixing it.
Uh-huh.
And then at some point, we were over a year and a half into this. The plan always was that I wasn't going to play anything on it. And Stephen Schwartz, the genius composer, we were having a meeting about, I think it's okay to share this story, we were having a meeting about scheduling when we were going to go into the studio with the studio musicians who were going to be the band. And that's it. It was a web meeting about that, and we're talking about dates, and then Stephen just put his hand up. He's like, he said something like, hang on a second, wait, there's a misunderstanding. I want Greg to be the band. Greg's going to play the instruments. We don't need to do this with, Greg's going to be the band. Let's move on. And that was it. And
why did he say that?
I haven't asked him. I don't know.
Okay.
Because
But
he heard the
clearly
Katy Perry
knew-
track.
He clearly knew,
I mean,
like,
he's
he's very
been-
familiar with what you're capable of.
I met Stephen Schwartz. We'd never worked together, but I met him the year I moved to Los Angeles on a Canadian government scholarship
Wow,
to
you've known him
study
a long time.
to study piano. I met him that year.
Wow.
And we just remained friends. And I just thought, he's in a very different lane for me. I mean, I was 21 when I met him. I had nothing going on. I was here to study piano. We just stayed in touch. If I was in New York, if he was free, we'd have dinner if he was out here. So he watched my career kind of slowly, sort of this tiny little snowball on almost flat ground, kind of become something. And then he wound up coming to my studio in Culver City, which was there for 18 years, and he met some artists I'd worked with. And weirdly, he actually sanctioned Ariana Grande and Mika, this artist from London, to do a version of his song Popular from Wicked 10 years ago.
Wow.
Mika, who is an artist I produced a lot, that song Grace Kelly from his first album. Mika had seen the musical Wicked, which I had not seen yet at that point. And he said, I've written my own version of the song Popular, but we'll probably never get permission to use it. And I said, well, actually, I know the composer. Why don't I could ask him. I don't know what he's going to say, and Stephen Schwartz was really cool. He's like, yeah, I like this. It's okay, sure. He said, could I come by, if I'm in LA, can I come meet Mika? Yeah. So I have a picture of like the three of us, arms around each other.
Amazing.
And Ariana sang the part of Glinda, the Good Witch, and is now playing 10 years later. I'm producing her again,
Wild.
singing it as the character. And it's so weird. Life is so, I'm getting chills saying it. It's so
Life
weird.
is long. Relationships matter. Be nice.
Be nice.
to people.
Be
Well
nice.
said.
Yeah.
Well said.
I know we've got to wrap up here. Can I ask one more kind of cheesy interview question, just because it's you? What advice would you give to your 30-year-old self?
You were right the whole time.
Don't doubt
Tell
yourself.
everybody to fuck off that's telling you don't do this.
Yes.
Tell everybody to fuck off.
Oh, hallelujah.
It makes me emotional.
Yes, Greg.
I love that. What's a song you guys have been listening to recently? What's the last song you heard that made you go, I think I might know what you're going to say to this, but that made you go, oh, fuck, that's new somehow, or how the fuck did they do that?
Yeah, can I start?
Yeah, start us off.
I don't know how to say his last name. Micah Prete? Preite? Preite.
Yeah.
The song, there's two. One is Kids Driving the Elevator, and the other is Where It's Easy to Be Beautiful. And there's probably two things I think are incredible. One, his guitar playing is unlike any guitar playing I've heard before. Clearly some Elliott inspiration, but standing on the shoulders. I mean, not following, it's standing on the shoulders. Beautiful, complex guitar parts that are kind of fluid and almost timeless. And I don't mean timeless like old, I mean timeless like they're not rhythmic even sometimes. It's like just this flowing, expressive guitar playing. That's the first thing. Yeah, absent of time. The second thing is his compositions. The best way I can describe the writing process, a lot of writing is linear. You like go forward somewhere. His writing seems to spiral. It never comes back. It's not through composed. It's just and it's not ignoring functional harmony. It's like functional harmony is kind of, you can see it in the distance, but he's left it behind.
Can you play one of those songs for us?
Yeah.
Up in the sky, somehow days go on by. As the wordplay intenses between you and I.
So good.
Oh my God.
Wow, it takes so much, either insanity or bravery to make a record like that.
Yeah.
Where there's so many things that, I can just hear like various like bean counters or management or any sort of label people like, I'm hearing wrong notes, or whatever. Like, and the artist is like, no, this is what I want it to be.
Yeah.
And just to, like, my favorite parts of so many records are sort of like mistakes. Like,
Yes.
Even though narcissistically, my career is very about like making things really kind of like Waking Up in Vegas is very Greatest Showman. It's all very like, like global domination and very sparkly and kind of shiny. But I love like when people have the balls to like, that's it.
And when I hear that, I'm reminded of your advice. I'm like, he was right all along. Everyone else can go fuck themselves.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's how I feel about that record. I'm like,
You're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
Do that. It's just like the perfect, full, true self-expression. I just find it very inspiring.
And it sounds like the truth.
Yeah.
Like true self-expression, but it feels like totally authentic.
Yeah.
Greg, what do you got? Anything you've heard, stumbled upon recently that you liked?
There was a not Gracie Jones, but Gracie Abrams song that really killed me recently. I took my 13-year-old daughter to see her at the Greek recently.
Nice.
And I'm terrible with song titles,
Yep.
including on records I've been hired to work on. In the middle of them, I can't remember. I can play them, but I can't remember the title, so I don't remember the name of it.
Do you remember anything about the song, the lyrics, anything?
The last line of the chorus is really like, it's one of those, like my favorite element in a joke is when you just don't see the punchline coming. It kind of does that. You're like, it does that. And some of her songs do that. But this one's really good. It's probably one of her more popular songs. I can't remember.
Nice.
Forgive me. I don't know.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she's really great. And she's great live, too.
Yeah.
She's just got her thing figured out. One of my all-time favorite jaw-dropping songs that I just will never get sick of is Marching Bands of Manhattan from Death Cab's Plans album.
That's such a great album.
It is, and it's the opening track. My dad had just passed away. I don't know if it was a little before that album came out or it was the same year. And the whole album, most of the album is about kind of, there's a death theme to it. And I just found it's so consoling, but I still listen to it and I just can't get over the lyrics and the choices. And in the same way, the choices in that song are so bold and gorgeous and subtle, but like,
Let's listen to that, Marching Bands of Manhattan.
it's amazing.
I wish we could open our eyes to see in all directions at the same time. Oh, what a beautiful view. If you were never aware of what was around you.
I just realized for the first time they never returned to the verse.
Yeah.
It just sits.
It really makes like, no, listen again to these words.
Yeah.
Listen again to these words. That's powerful.
That's powerful. What have you been listening to, Ryan?
Have you guys heard the new Tyler, the Creator album?
No.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. There's a song called Hey Jane. I haven't spent a ton of time with it, but he's amazing, obviously, and the production's really cool. And harmonically, there's some really cool shit happening.
That's a brave artist.
Let's play a couple of
exactly,
seconds
yeah.
of it.
Hey Jane, your hair long and your legs long, and we could both relate to the fact that our dad's gone. Couple good qualities on you, you could pass on. You're not dumb and your face good and your hair strong. Look, hey Jane, I know my mom would be excited as hell. I know your mom would be excited as well. But people talk, so let's pretend we ain't got no one to tell.
Oh my God. You know when you hear music and you're like optimistic for the future of art creation? You're
Yeah.
like, oh, there's more.
Yeah.
There's more that you can do.
He will do that.
Oh God, there's some artists who are just so good at being like, hey, let me show you something else.
Yeah.
Let me show you some new way to do things. I love that.
You can instantly tell when music's being made for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We're if we have time to keep talking, if you have a few more minutes.
Sorry, my answers are so long. And I
Oh,
start
are you
answering-
kidding me? I feel like we could spend all
Start answering
day.
questions that
It's-
weren't even asked. I'm
we-
like,
we-
and my favorite color is.
This is amazing.
It's so hard not to keep
We're going
going.
to talk about Greg's favorite color and more over on Patreon. We're going to talk about the song Apologize.
This song here.
Has there been a bigger hit?
Which
I'm not
Greg,
sure.
Greg produced.
Which Greg produced. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Greg, for being here.
My pleasure.
And please
Thanks for
join
having
us
me.
over at Patreon for continued Dead Wax.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you on Patreon to listen to Apologize with Greg. Bye.
Bye.
They became the #1 unsigned band on MySpace quickly.
Oh my God.
Timbaland says he wants that song Apologize to go on his record.